I think what I'm going to do now is stop this insulating stuff and spend a little time just organizing my mess. What happens when you do a little work is you wind up with a bunch of mess. I got two skill saws I'd like to take apart and see if I can make one good one out of them. I've got this boat motor that I've never had running. I swapped a shotgun for a boat, and the guy gave me that motor. And he'd never heard it run, and neither had I, but it's a fairly new motor. It's a 4-stroke Mercury. And I'd like to have something on it where it could sit. Now, I've got this golf cart here, and I always thought that golf cart came pretty close to being a pretty good boat motor stand. And in some ways it does, and in some ways I'm not so sure about that, you know, because when you open these legs out like that, it just gets kind of cattywampus, and it's hard for me to figure out how it's supposed to work. But it could be that I could take these wheels and make me up a little sawhorse dealie, or maybe not even have the wheels, just make me up a little sawhorse dealie that I could sit that on or something out of some of this stuff. Another thing I want to do is weld this piece back on here. I had put this piece on here because at the time that's the only piece I had. And there's a lot of sharp edges in this little bit right here. So I was thinking, well, I could just spot weld that right back on there. And hit it with a grinder if I need to here and there and call it good. So I think I'm going to do that too. I just spot that back on there and think some more about how to store my boat motor and what to do with these wheel things. And, you know, stuff like that. And saws and stuff that's laying around on the floor. Let honey baby get out here and do her thing as far as cleaning the boat up. Yeah, if weather stays like this, I think it might make sense to put the boat back in. You know, it's cold nights, but it's nice days, nice warm days we've been having here. So yeah, there's all that too. Okay, so let me I'm just gonna set y'all aside while I contemplate which move to make and how, and I'll get back with you after a bit. Okay. Okay, let's build a little cart for this thing. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. I think what I might do, instead of having it be a sawhorse, is just having it shaped like, kind of like a letter L, where it comes straight down under the motor, and then might have a T or a end, but the weight is going to move toward the back. And so I could fashion something up. I have to figure out how or what, but I could do it. Let me go grab a couple pieces of metal from out back, and I'll come back and we'll play around with that idea. Okay, so I had a little change of heart about building that cart for a few reasons. One is I just feel like I've ground enough metal lately, you know, that I just don't need more metal in my lungs right now. And another is that really I just wanted to get this thing in an out-of-the-way place for a while. I don't plan to work on it right away, put it on. It's a little bit too heavy to, you know, attach it to the back of this boat for a spare motor, unless, you know, sometimes I actually do make little small transoms that attach to the back of your boat and lets you put a spare motor on the back of it. But, you know, to be honest with you, if I really wanted something like that, it'd be a lot easier to put one of those trolling motors in here than it would that. my thinking on this one is at some point I might score me a little inexpensive tin boat that's really lightweight, something I can leave down at the lake, and take the motor up to the house with me and carry it down there and put it on there if I wanted to ride around. But I didn't want to go to the trouble of putting this boat in the water. But on the other hand, even that is not all that sensible, because the amount of trouble it would take to get that motor down to the water is more than it's worth. It's really easier to hook this thing up to the real trailer and haul it over the park and put it in. But I don't know, it's a good motor. A 4-stroke motor is something I always wanted in an outboard, so it'd be kind of fun to have it on a boat and mess around with a little bit, but I don't know if I'll ever do much with it. I did order me a cart. I went on, looked online, and they're not very expensive, and you can get one that's someone else has already done the engineering and the welding and the building and figured out the proper strength and has wheels on it. And I thought, I could spend my whole day or several days doing that, or I could move on to doing some other things. And there's other things that I wouldn't mind doing, especially right now. We're leaving in a couple of weeks. We're going to go back up to the Great Northland for the Thanksgiving holiday with the kids and grandkids. So I don't really want to be working on a project that's going to take up all my time. I'd rather spend a little time doing a little, straighten a few things up and figure a few things out. That looks pretty good sitting right there. And I think the weight of it is on the tongue, the tail. No, maybe not. I thought it might be touching the floor there, but if not, it's right at it. But that should do. That should do. Give me a place to put that for now. And that way I can kind of focus on some other things that could be fun. I hate that my little knife broke, because that kind of takes all the fun out of doing the insulation that I was doing. But maybe if I took it apart, I could fix it. I don't know. It seems like there's some kind of spring that pulls the blade back that isn't springing on it. Like if you take this and you run it, they don't move. But if you mash down on the blade, they do. It's like something's not pulling this blade back. And I might be able to get it apart and figure out why not, and what I'd have to do to make it work. So that's a project I could do. I mentioned these saws over here. I got that one big skill saw is acting bad. It may be that the brushes have gone bad. It wouldn't be that hard to pull it apart. And this is a heavier saw than that little lightweight one. But even without the blade on here, when I try to run this thing, it's jamming up. Let me show you. And I thought it might be this thing has a little button here that you're supposed to be able to mash to lock the blade, and I thought, well, that button could be what's causing it to jam. Now there's no blade on this, but it just doesn't move at all. So something's locking this up dead. And so it may be that I can take it apart and figure it out. I see a dirt dauber's nest or 2 or 3 down inside of it already. So, it looks like there's bolts. There's one here and some here. My dad took an electric drill apart one time. He said that was the biggest mistake he ever made, that he almost never figured out how to get it back together. It was one of those cordless electric drills. He said, man, them things are complicated. But I might be able to get this apart and get it back together. I don't know. I might look at that too and see what I think about that. That shaft is just frozen. It's just stuck there. All right, I'll play with this and that and a few other things. Basically, just cleaning up generally and trying to make things nice in here and stuff like that. Oh yeah. One thing I do want to do is, and I'll do this, I will grind some metal to do that. Is I want to cut this little nubby end off this thing here. See if I can get this grinder to work after I threw it on the ground when I caught on fire the other day. Probably wouldn't hurt to grind the edges off these edges, the sharp places off these edges too on that. Probably build a couple smaller of these ones later on. That's what I'm thinking anyway.